Page 32, floating clouds. At the top of the page, I introduce you to the idea of dynamic shading. Dynamics in music applies to louds and softs. That's what dynamics are, louds and softs. Shading is how much. So basically it's how much louds and softs. You see you've had forte, F, and then MF, mezzo forte, MP, mezzo piano, and P for soft, piano soft. Well, technically you can be in between those. You don't have to be right at those levels. And they're not set levels anyway, but you can be in between them. And when you go from one level to another, you can kind of slide into it. You don't have to be at one level and then suddenly jump to another level. You can blend into it. Shading, that's shading. Two ways of doing it. You get louder, gradually get louder, or you gradually get softer. They say loud and soft. You don't have to be loud and soft. It's just from where you're at, you're going to get louder or softer. For instance, let's just take a look at floating clouds. Let's take a look at the third line. You start out moderately soft, MP. I'm going to do the right hand. It's here. Whatever you think moderately soft is. And then in the third measure, all of a sudden, it's moderately loud. And then going on, you get louder to loud. So that's not what we're talking about. That is suddenly you're changing, all of a sudden. What I'm talking about is gradually doing it. In the first line, and they have these arrows, you can use the word or the arrow. Either they mean the same thing. And the word, they usually abbreviate it, like crescendo, that's another Italian word, it means gradually get louder. Sometimes you'll see it just C-R-E-S-C in the music. Sometimes you'll see the arrow. They mean the same thing. In band, when we're playing and when they give us the words like the crescendo or whatever, I usually take a pencil and I draw in an arrow because it's easier to see the symbol than it is to read the word. So we usually do that. Then the other one, diminuendo or decrescendo, gradually gets softer, and the arrow goes the other way. You could use the arrow instead of the word. Sometimes it's just D-I-M, period. Dim means gets softer, gradually gets softer. The trick is, how do you remember which arrow is which? And the way I do it is look at the first line here. There's an arrow that stretches the whole line in between the staves. You read the arrow like you read the music. We go from left to right, whichever your left is going to whatever. As the lines get gradually further apart, you get louder. If the lines start apart and they gradually come together, you get softer. And that's how I remember which one to do. So in the first line, as those lines get further apart, we're gradually going to get a little louder. And I'll talk about this more when we get to the dynamics. Remember, when I learn a piece of music, I have a set order that I like to go through, and dynamics is a little later on. We got things to take care of first. So let's talk about floating clouds. Treble and bass clef again. I keep saying that because it's not always going to be that way. Just get in the habit of looking at the clef signs. We have one sharp in the key signature, one in the key of G major again. 2/4 time, we're going to count to 2, but we're still counting quarter notes. If you look it over, we got eighth notes and quarter notes and half notes, and okay, we can handle that stuff, I hope. You don't have any dotted half notes, in case you're wondering, because they're not allowed here. You can't have a dotted half note in 2/4 time, because a dotted half note would be 3 counts, and the measures only get 2 counts, so you can't have a note with 3 counts in it. It's just not allowed. No. So a half note's the biggest note they can have, and they've got half notes in here. Let's take it one hand at a time, make sure we got the rhythm and the fingering and all that. In the right hand, your G position, again, it's 1 and 2 and. 1 and 2 and. 2 and. 1 and 2 and. 1 and 2 and. For the most part, that's the piece. Left hand. Left hand doesn't come in the third measure. You have a half note. C, because you're in this position. 1 and 2 and. 1 and 2. And the second line. 1. Left it's the melody. The last two measures of the second line for the left hand, you have a C, and then a G and a B at the same time. Again, I'm lowering the weight into it. Good practice. Try and get them down at the same time. Don't disconnect them. Not that easy to do, but it's important that you learn to do that. Put the hands together slowly. It's here. Anyway, you work it out and put the hands together, then go back and get rid of the hesitations, because it has to be a steady beat. Nice and slow, but steady. Then we have the phrasing. Connect them. Lift up. It's like taking a breath. Now see in the second line, that curved line goes through the whole line. It covers both staves. Means the melody is going from one staff to the other, and you connect it all. So it started out left hand, now it goes to the right hand. So you can connect this and this. Like so. In the third line, there's two. Here's lift up. You can lift up both hands. And lift up again. So put in the phrasing, the slurs. There's no staccatos or anything like that. No accents, nothing like that. Then we get to the dynamics. Okay, this is the fun part. We're going to start out soft, whatever you think that is, and that's the melody. But it has that arrow, so we're going to gradually get louder. And as usual, the music doesn't always tell you how much louder to get. See, sometimes they'll tell you how loud. They would put in another dynamic at the end of the line to tell you how loud to get. Sometimes. Not always. They didn't do that here. Well, so it's up to you. How loud do you think you should get? Well, I'm suggesting maybe you can go up to about a moderately loud. Don't get loud. This is not a loud piece until you get to the bottom. Just get up to about moderately loud. So you're going to go from soft to the end of the line is moderately loud. So how do you get from to here? Well, if you don't plan it out, you'll be moderately loud by the second measure. See, I'm already there. That's too soon. I have to plan it out. And these crescendos and diminuendos can go on for well, this goes 4 measures. So, depending on the situation, in this case, I'm going to do it like a measure at a time. So the first measure is soft. And the next measure is just a little bit louder. It's still soft, but just a hair louder. Then go up to moderately soft in the third measure. Now moderately loud. So it's like one measure at a time. You have to plan things out mechanically, and then eventually you get to where you start feeling this. In the second line, we have 2 arrows. The first one you get louder, and then the second one you get softer. When they match like that, it's here to here, 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 here. Okay. That's sometimes called a swell. You swell up and back down. You go up and back down. It's very common. It's one of the ways of interpreting music. When you're thinking about feeling and interpreting it, you can put in swells. You feel them. Well, here, they don't tell you what. I mean, you finish the first line of moderately loud. I'm not going to start the second line of moderately loud and get louder. I'm going to go back down to soft. Here. I'm going to go up to maybe moderately soft and back down to soft. Look in the middle of the hairpins. These arrows are called hairpins, by the way. Look in the middle of them to see what note or notes are there, and that's your target. That's what you're after. So I'm going to start soft, and I'm going to get up to moderately soft here. That's melody. That's my target. And then I'm going to come back off. So soft, a little louder, here, and then back down. then come back off. So you swell up and swell back down. A little louder. Back down to soft. You feel it. Now in the third line, there's now it's just regular, it's moderately soft. A little louder, moderately loud. Now you're loud. And now we're going to go from loud to soft. Well, when it's short like this, you got a lot, you can do it like each note. Loud, moderately soft, soft. There. So here I'm changing every note. The left hand stays in the background no matter what happens. Just keep the left hand out of the way. The dynamics apply to the melody. There are times in music, in written music, where they'll give you separate dynamic indications for the different parts that are going on. And so the accompaniment might have its own dynamic given and instructions, crescendo and decrescendo and all that stuff. But most of the time you get one in the middle, and it's up to you to apply it. It applies to the melody. You keep the accompaniment in the background. Speed-wise, moderato is a moderate speed. Well, with the eighth notes, it's not how fast the beat, it's the feel of it. Sort of a moderato, nice, pleasant feel. Then when you get down to the bottom, the last line and the last two measures, you see between the stabs there's an RIT period. That is, RIT is short for retardando. We call it a rit. Rit or retardando, another Italian word, means to gradually slow down. It's like a train coming into a station slowing down, except you don't stop, you just slow down. The beat slows down. How fast you're going in the last line? 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1. And just gradually slow down. And that's another thing you have to kind of experiment with, and you'll get over time. In interpreting the music, you'll feel that slow down. And that's however you feel it, that's how you play it. Again, please don't copy me. You make it yours. Get to know it well enough you can start feeling this music. And at this point, actually, you can go back through these other pieces you've been playing and see if you can interpret those and add dynamics. There may not be any given, but you can add them and feel them. And how do you feel them? You can experiment with the swells on some of them and just experiment. I like to play this with you very slowly to double check the notes and the rhythms. I'm not going to do the dynamics. I'm not going to do the crescendos and that kind of stuff when I play with me. I just play in notes and rhythms. That's all I'm after. I can't slow down because the metronome won't slow down, so we won't do the retardando. I'll give us 2 counts because it's in 2/4 time. So let's try it together very slowly. Now because of the 8th notes, I want to keep it slow. I went ahead and put the metronome to beat 8th notes. So it's beating 1 and 2 and. Those are 8th notes. So I'll give us 2 counts, 2 quarter note counts, and let's try this. Ready, and go, and 1 and 2 and. 1 and 2 and. 1 and 2. 1 and 2 and. 1 and 2.